Hello everyone, I'm your host Juman, and welcome back to the Brain It Out podcast, your go-to show for all things career exploration and youth empowerment. We're working to change the dominant career narrative and connect high-level industry leaders with the incoming generation of talent. I keep reading research showing that the world's top companies care less about what you majored in and what you can actually do. But how do we bridge that gap while we're still in school? My guest today is doing exactly that. Shelly Ruff is at Adobe, focusing on K-12 and higher education initiatives. And she basically bridges the gap between major educational institutions and the tools that students need to stand out in the modern workforce. And today we're talking about digital execution, personal branding, and why learning out loud is the ultimate resume. So Shelly, thank you so much for joining. I'm super excited to start this talk with you. And please feel free to introduce yourself.
Of course. Hi. Thank you so much. First of all, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for reaching out and finding me. And you're a junior in high school, love the initiative and finding the people and the folks and having conversations is one of the coolest things I think you can do. So kudos to you for bringing this all together. But before we start, I just have to quickly say, I'm sharing my own experiences, and I work with higher ed customers and students at Adobe, and I'll stick to things that are public and kind of the what I've personally seen work. So just so you know, that's one of my, I work for Adobe, but I also like to share, it's kind of my own personal experiences. So we'll say that. But let me introduce myself a little bit. As you mentioned, I have worked a couple of roles at Adobe, and I actually have a background in education. I was a school teacher for a lot of years. So I taught fifth grade, loved it. I love teaching fifth grade. So for me, education's always been something that's been a kind of a core driver of what I love to be involved in. And getting a chance to work at Adobe is a dream. As a former teacher, bringing some industry experience, and then just being able to be a part of some of the coolest brand tools and helping students learn how to tell stories, learn how to use these industry level tools that are going to be a part of who they are. It's just such a fun full circle thing that I get to do. So the student success has always been part of my lens. And again, what drew me to Adobe is that creativity isn't treated as like a nice to have. It's like a real career skill. So in higher education, I get to work with universities, faculties, and students, and all across disciplines, helping them communicate ideas clearly, build confidence, and show what they can actually do. So it's been a really cool intersection of education, real world skills, and impact.
And for those of you who are new to the show, you can find us on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. So let's go ahead and get started. So first off, Shelly, I really want to learn more about your journey and your story. So how did you start working in higher education at Adobe?
My goodness. Getting here has been kind of a cool transition. So for me, I started as a contract worker at Adobe supporting a K-12 state deal. So I got to work at a state level with stakeholders and state boards of education. And because the state that I taught in was where I was, I know a lot of the scope, and I know some of the problems with education, or some of the things that they're looking to fill, right? And some of those gaps. So starting in education, learning the stakeholders and learning the tools is how I started. After I was in that role for about a year, I was on this higher ed team. Love the work they're doing. And like I mentioned to you, I have two of my own kids who are in high school or older, right? So they're just at this age where they're needing skills. They're needing to know how to apply those skills into what they're going to do in their job. So on this team, when I kind of learned what they did, I loved it, fell in love immediately. It's the same group. We have all these campuses that we support globally, and on a team that we're really building programs to help meet students where they're at, help meet faculty and teachers. How are we helping them use these tools in their everyday work? So I think having the background in education, understanding a scope of what's needed, and kind of being a little bit loud, in a nice way, on LinkedIn, things like that, I kind of, my passion kind of comes out, and it's a great way of connecting with folks. I mean, that's how you found me, right? And the work I'm doing. And I just wrapped up our first pilot program in North America for Adobe Student Academy. We really focused on career branding. What do students need to know right now? What can they take? They don't need a product demo. They don't need to learn, this tool, but they need to know what they're creating and how it's going to help them get a job. So that's a little bit how I got to this space. And Adobe is a great place for your own personal growth, but also, again, the products they have and the innovation in AI are constantly evolving, which is so cool.
Thank you so much for that. And do you have any tips and tricks for people who are currently looking to break into this field specifically?
Whew, yeah, and it's maybe two different lenses because the work I do is more like kind of a pathway. I get a lot of former teachers who want to know what it's like to get a job at Adobe, and this is kind of a further in your career kind of a role. But as I'm working with students and they want a job and they want an internship and they're like, Adobe's such a cool company. Can I see myself there? That's the stuff that gets me excited, and I love connecting with students. I had a group of, how many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 students that were part of our Adobe Ambassadors program and our Adobe student community. And these students were the ones who were really building and teaching these courses. Students don't want to hear from adults like 40-year-olds like me, right? They want to hear and they want to see students their age that are building and creating and what it looks like and share a little bit about it. So it was really, really great to bring student presenters in to do that kind of work. What I tell students all the time, take opportunities, look for things, be a go-getter. Some of my favorite things to do is I live in Utah and I'm very close to one of our biggest campuses at Adobe. It's so big, we call it a campus. But it's this beautiful building if you're in Utah, and it's in Lehigh. You can't miss it if you've driven anywhere in the state, right? And students love coming in. And for me, it's like, come on in, check it out. Let's talk about what it takes to get a job here. Walking students in high school and in university level, putting them in a careers page and walking through like, hey, if you can see yourself here, these are the things you should be doing to build your skill set. And Adobe careers page and other companies do the same thing. Get on a careers page, find a role that looks so cool, and start to build your skill set. Would be one of the first things that I would share with students who are interested in a possible career path that way.
100%. And I've also heard a lot about the Adobe Student Ambassador program. And many students who are interested in maybe working in Adobe or just very much creative, maybe they took the Adobe class like me when they were in high school, and they applied to become an Adobe Student Ambassador. So what is that process like, and what is the program like in general?
Yeah, so it's actually fairly new. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share, and I can give you a resource. We can add a link, but it's so cool. What it is it's a program for students who enjoy building community and they love helping their peers learn. So the best place to start, and I'll give you the link, is Adobe for Education site, and it outlines what these ambassadors do, what the experience looks like, how to apply. Very, very student driven and focused on real skills. So anytime I need help with an event or students involved, I'll go to our student ambassadors and I'll be like, who's your campus lead, right? And these students are so driven, and also being part of the ambassador program connects you globally to our other ambassadors, folks maybe across the country that maybe you hadn't known or met. You get a chance to really connect and kind of build connections and learn storytelling skills and what events are happening. So it's actually, and there are some paid opportunities of being part of that program. So I'll send you a link, and definitely send folks there because it's getting a lot of traction right now and it's something we're really promoting here at Adobe.
And do you have to study at a creative campus to become part of the ambassador program?
Great question, and that's something I'll have to check on. And right now we have something called the Creative Campus program is more of just sometimes our all-in campuses. So I always encourage students, if you don't know if at whatever university you're in, or college, or technical college, um, look on your website to see if you have a license. A lot of the times, a lot of students don't even know they have the resources for either the whole Creative Cloud suite or even just Adobe Express. And Adobe Express is one of the coolest all-in tools. I use it all the time for my side hustle. I use it for things that I'm making for fun. I use it at work for Adobe Express is like so great for creating presentations, building a portfolio. Those are the things that I even tell high school students. If you need to start building your own digital portfolio, and Adobe Express is such a cool tool and mostly free, right? Most students have it for free.
Yeah.
And it's something that you can start adding to, and it's something so cool that you can share like who you are.
Thank you so much for that. And building off of the Adobe Student Ambassador program, I know there's also like the Adobe Max event and the Adobe Summit. So like, what are those like conferences like? Who do they cater towards in general? And do Adobe Student Ambassadors also kind of like get invited to those programs as well, or like how do they like connect to each other?
Yeah, and that's probably a little more of a nuanced question because I think we're starting to see like bringing those students in
Yeah.
adds a lot of value. But first, I'll step back for a minute and tell you it's the difference between Adobe Max and Adobe Summit. How I normally explain this. Adobe Max is the creativity conference, right? The designers, photographers, video creators, and educators. And it's about craft and inspiration. Adobe Summit is focused on digital experience, marketing, analytics, customer journeys. So, same company, we just have very different audiences and goals. So, oftentimes, you'll see the creative part, the Creative Cloud, the Adobe Express. Those are the things that'll be at Adobe Max. So I know sometimes they can get confused a little bit. So I think that's my favorite way of differentiating.
And I recently read Adobe research saying that employers are, I mentioned this in the beginning of the episode as well, that employers are moving away from asking, what did you major in, to what can you actually do? What skills do you have? So you mentioned this right now, but how are you seeing students use digital portfolios to prove that to recruiters, that they have these skill sets?
Great question. I think this is something that I could spend so long on because I think it's super valuable, right? But it's like storytelling is now considered like a hard skill, something that you need to be able to do. And clarity is power. So everyone has information, right? But not everyone can make it like usable. Storytelling is how you align people, how you explain impact and make decisions. So in a world like that's full of noise that we have, right, and being able to communicate clearly is a real advantage. And and short form too. We have all these social media storytelling apps. Being able to practice building your brand and your audience and how you communicate clearly is a huge, huge skill. And to your point, the digital portfolio too, for me, it's like such a concise way to bring your brand and how to house it, right? When someone wants to reach out and learn about a role at Adobe or a program, somebody dropped a link to a portfolio to me, I'd be like, whoa, yeah, this is really, really cool, right? It's a cool thing to be able to highlight in a quick, unique way. And this one's kind of fun too. Every once in a while, I'll get somebody who will just send me their resume and they won't do any work and they'll just be like, what job do you think I can have? Or what job do you think I should apply for based on my resume? And I was like, whoa, yo, what you should be doing is you want me to do the work for you, right? What I want students now to be like, I looked through the whole careers website and I found this, and this that I feel like I totally aligned to, looks right up my alley. This is how I built my resume based on things I've done that I feel like I would have a really good chance at, right? So I think steering students in university and in high school and to start looking at things that way, do some of the work, right? Instead of telling somebody that figure it out for me. It's something that I see every once in a while. So storytelling them.
100%.
Yeah.
And building off of the skill set that students need to have nowadays. Let's say like if two students are applying for the same internship, and one of them has like an Adobe badge or a micro credential they add on their LinkedIn page, what does that signal to a hiring manager about maybe their skill set or just their adaptability in general?
Yeah, also another good question. For my experience, is what I think. I believe that it shows like momentum. So it shows that somebody didn't stop learning when the class ended, right? Like when a badge is paired with some like a real project or an example, I think it shows adaptability and follow through. And it's really less about the badge alone, but more about like how they use that to tell their story. So I think somebody, if you're collecting badges, for collecting badges isn't necessarily the goal, but if you can incorporate like, oh, I saw this opportunity for this AI tool and I saw the value and I wanted to, keep learning and I did this and this is what I can do because of it. That's where like the value is.
Thank you for that. And you also mentioned earlier that you work with creative campuses, so like Arizona State, San Jose State. So, what is one thing that those schools are doing differently to make sure their students don't graduate with obsolete skills?
Yeah, no, it's actually such a fun space to be in. And when you see like universities are trying to solve for a lot of the same problems, it's so and I'll say fun because I think my job is so fun. But it's so fun to be able to see what a university is doing, what they've leaned into, what their students are excited about, and then being able to share it with another university. So, um, treating creativity and communication like core skills, right? They're not like electives. So, seeing courses like visual storytelling and digital communication and problem solving embedded across all the programs, so you can be in an education, like I was a former teacher, I'd be in an education class. I would love to see teachers, new teachers, learning how to use these skills as they're, finishing up their programs, but also in science, also in business. So not just design, not just like film or, those kind of things. So I think that's how students avoid graduating with like obsolete skills when they can apply it across like their whole whatever the scope of education.
And you mentioned earlier that storytelling is now being treated like a hard skill. So, from your personal view at Adobe, why do you think it's being treated like a hard skill in the corporate world?
Oh goodness. I think it is because it's when you're able to tell a story, you're able to connect. And I think if you've learned skills on what it takes to communicate to another human, and you can share that connection in a storytelling way, you've got a skill that's going to apply across so many different domains. And I think about the people that you know, or the people that you maybe look up to, or people you've really enjoyed spending time with. I think it's people who know how to connect and share, right, what they're going through, know how to ask questions, know how to listen. And to your point about, getting a job somewhere, what makes somebody different? If I have a candidate come in, that has the ability to listen, ask good questions, take a step back, and do those things, that becomes a core skill that this person immediately I can be like, oh, this person probably knows how to learn and is eager, even if they don't know all the things, they're going to be willing to learn the things, right, going forward. So that would be my own personal, and things I'd love to help students, high school, university, even my own kids, with how to talk about yourself and how to connect with others.
Thank you so much for that. And in the corporate world, I don't even know if you're allowed to say this or not, but what are the biggest corporate secrets that are typically like gate kept that can land
Oh,
students
goodness.
like all these offers at big tech companies?
Okay, corporate secrets. Let's see. Just kidding. I'm not, I can't give away secrets. But I think there aren't really secrets. I think they're just behaviors maybe that like compound. So, and I'm going to tell you this, and this is what I tell everybody, especially students, and I love when I see it in real time. Things like following up, right? If you were spent time with somebody, or if you went to a speaking engagement and you really loved hearing from that speaker, follow up, send an email, send a quick note that says, hey, thanks, that meant a lot. Like those are skills that I think build what you need for like the next level. And I sometimes when I see it in younger, in like early career folks, I'm like, oh yeah, they're going somewhere, right? So it's following up, building your proof of work, being able to ask a smart question, right? And being proactive instead of waiting to be told what to do. So like I know those aren't necessarily like secrets, but I think sometimes when you think about a huge company like Adobe, you think that everybody there might already have like all of these things, or how do I stand out? But being in a couple of different companies and helping students now, those to me feel like the secrets, helping and getting there. So I don't know if that's what you were looking for, without losing my job, with sharing secret Adobe secrets. Just kidding.
No, thank you. That was really helpful.
Yeah.
And building off of that even more, I mean, how can college graduates or even high school students position themselves in a way that will land them these internships at big software companies such as Adobe?
Oh man. So like kind of breaking into the field, right? Are things that you're talking about. So what I've noticed is I think employers care less about this title, and more to my point, like the proof of the work. What have you done? Where did you volunteer? Were you part of a community? Like show me that you did something that maybe you hadn't done before. Maybe you put yourself out there and tried out for this thing and joined this club or this community. So maybe my advice would be to like build small, um, relevant examples that match the role. Again, a short portfolio, sample projects, even like a one-page plan, but also explain your thinking. So if you can clearly say why you made that decision, or what impact, like, oh, I came in and I built this thing and we served a community of over 200 people for this event, right? Like show the impact, that you had, you suddenly stand out, right? If you can explain your thinking. If I could give that information to all students, right, then I feel like we're in a good place. They're going to learn the skills they need for success at every level.
Definitely. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I also think that a huge barrier for students is feeling like they don't have any like impressive work to show, to build their portfolio. So for someone starting out with just, zero corporate experience, what is the best way to showcase, raw potential or personal projects using tools like you mentioned, Adobe Express, or just, general portfolio builders?
Yeah. Great question. And I think sometimes it's a little overwhelming and someone's like, oh, I don't know where to start. And honestly, your portfolio does not need to be flashy, right? It just needs to be clear. And I think the strongest ones show three things. So it's like the problem that you're solving for, what you created, and what the outcome was. And when students can turn class projects into like simple like case studies, recruiters can instantly see how you would perform on a team, which ultimately is the ability to clearly show and explain your work. And it's something that I really try to help students and spend a lot of time helping people like practice that skill. Tools like Adobe Express have templates. You don't have to start from like nothing. So going into Adobe Express and even typing in portfolio template, all of a sudden you probably have so many options and you're like, that, something that connects to you. You don't have to start from nowhere, which I think is a huge benefit. It's also that like, just start. Don't wait for something, just like start on something, right? Because I think a lot of times students wait to be told where to start or what to do, and showing that you can start when maybe you haven't been given like the order to, that's a huge value add that I think a lot of students maybe don't think about.
And building off of that, you mentioned the Adobe Student Academies, which you run, which focus on workforce readiness and entrepreneurship. So if you could give a student listening right now just one piece of advice on how to transition from a classroom mindset to a creator mindset, what would it be?
Oh goodness. I think it's again, and this is my personal experience, but I think a lot of it is behavior based. I think it's showing up prepared, right? Thinking through, following up clearly. I think taking initiative even without certainty, like not knowing, and that's scary for a lot of people. And it's scary for like my kids now. Like I'm like, just go do the thing, right? Those are the skills that you can practice, and they're often what make like the biggest difference over time. And they seem kind of basic, but if you start to think back about a situation or you're in a classroom setting, you know, how often does the teacher or your new manager constantly feel like they're checking in or telling you what to do or just start, right? And if you can take a step back and not be the person who has to constantly be told to start or when things are due, you know, and you're the one that's like, cool, I'm going to get started. I'm going to mark my pathway. I'm going to do this, right? And then I'm going to finish on my own. You become like at a different level of a student. And it's honestly a big gap right now that we're seeing in workforce readiness, that I'm seeing even with students in the classroom and hearing from first year uh, professors, right? Like, what are these incoming freshmen really struggling with? And it's that. So if I could give that to students, like just start the thing. Don't wait to be told. Don't wait to be checked in 3 times, right? I think that's a huge skill that can put students ahead.
And I see this a lot as well, like on LinkedIn, how, creators are always saying, like, have delusional confidence. Just go and, like, do the thing, even if you feel like you have, like, no qualifications or, like, you aren't, the person for the job. And do you have, like, personally any books or resources that, you found helpful that you want to share with the audience?
Goodness. When I was a school teacher, I used to love, I read so many books, like fun books, right? Like I was the Harry Potter and I was the Dystopian Society. I loved uh, what were some of my other, oh, I loved The Lightning Thief. Things are that, right? And every year I'd read The Hobbit to my students. And I think it's books that kind of give you a chance to like think about creativity unlocked differently, like kind of what gets your brain flowing. So I'd say that for sure. But also another couple, maybe I'll share what's like on my list to read yet, and I haven't yet. So something that about building and sharing your work, like there's a book called, I think it's called Show Your Work by, I think it's Austin Kleon. And it's kind of pairs with like the hands-on tools in student programs. So it's like letting you practice, not just teach. And any books that kind of empower you and help you learn that you're like one of your best advocates. Maybe I need a better answer for a good book, and I'll have that next time when I'm reading it myself. I just constantly feel like I'm working on finding things that speak to me in like little niche books or somebody like this, and so I'll order it and I'll be like, oh, I'm ready to read that too, right? And so I would probably start there, but then again, it's always like my go-to fun creativity is kind of going back to my roots of being a 5th grade teacher. What are the fun books that I want students to experience that bring a little nostalgia to me too? So maybe I'm all over the place with that one.
No, thank you, that's good. And as we come to the end of today's episode, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Goodness. No, I love the chance to do this, to share a lot about programming and the work we're doing for students. And if I could, again, tell high school students and new university college freshmen, start building your own, like, what do you do that's cool? Even if you don't think it's that cool, ask the person next to you, like, why do you think I'm cool? And start thinking about those things. What are you interested in? I just knew when I was that age, I was going to be a school teacher. And now I work for one of the coolest tech companies doing some, right? And like doing some really fun out there programming, helping students kind of be the best versions of themselves. And I would have never seen this pathway for myself had I not just started trying something new. I didn't know if I was going to be good at it. I didn't know if it was going to be like the next step, but like being the person that somebody also now can say, oh, go talk to Shelly. She does this stuff, right? Is kind of, it's really rewarding to me. And everything's a path, growth. Just constantly be willing and to learn something new. And it's okay if you're not good at it at first. And that it kind of sucks to feel that, but it's okay, because then you're going to add it to your tool belt once you're like figured it out. Like you and this, like the podcast, how cool is that? Right? Like it's kind of scary. A lot of adults I know who feel like they want to share in their voice are scared to take this first step. So kudos to you for doing some cool stuff.
Thank you so much, Shelly.
Yeah.
And I love this conversation with you today. Thank you so much for joining. My biggest takeaway was that you have to stop waiting for the degree, for the permission to start building, to start creating. Using all these digital tools is pretty much, the ultimate hack to break into the industry and, to just start building and, start being yourself. And before I let you go, a student or a young creator is listening to this right now and starting to feel that imposter syndrome that you talked about earlier. What is one small action they can start taking today to build their digital brand?
And I'm gonna hype the tool I use all the time is just get inside like Adobe Express. Just find a template. Just figure out like what's one thing that you can start to build and show. Because I think once you start creating something and you start to feel that confidence about what you built, it's hard not to keep it going, right? And then share it with somebody. Share it with somebody you trust. It's all digital, like a link, and have somebody, send it to them and see like, hey, look what I just created. And it gives you some confidence to step out of your shell a little bit and have somebody, hopefully that you trust, give you some good feedback that you're doing cool stuff. So that's what I would say.
Much.
Yeah.
If someone is interested in reaching you on LinkedIn, where can they find you?
Yeah, I'm happy to share my LinkedIn connection, but again, my name's Shelly Ruff, and I looking me up in Adobe or education, and you can kind of see my career path, which I love to share and love to help folks find places and things like that. But I can give you my link if you want to share it on your post.
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much, Shelly, for joining today.
Thanks so much, and hopefully you have a lovely day, and thanks again for letting me join.